Good afternoon, everybody. We would like to welcome you to the third session of KVEC's Design Lab launch. If you have been with us throughout the morning, you've attended discussions on access and LMS consistency. But if you had to miss those sessions, remember that they are archived and you will have the chance to look at those later and join in the discussion. My name is Jennifer Carroll. I am the professional learning lead here at KVEC, and I am one of the facilitators for this session today. And my partner in crime is...
Hi, I'm Robert Brown. I'm the lead policy analyst here at KVEC, and I'm partnering crime with Jennifer on co-facilitating the session. We're looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, so today our session is on people and leadership support. And what we want to really stress before we ever get started on our session today is we're not talking about leadership in terms of administration. We're talking about building a culture of leadership that is going to support students, teachers, parents, families, in making sure that the 2020-2021 school year is the very best school year ever. Not the very best school year we could have because of COVID, but the very best school year ever. So we're really talking about building the leadership capacity of everyone and tapping into those talents and those resources that we have. So we have some norms for our meeting today. We are using a different format of Zoom. So we are actually in a webinar format. So that means that attendees are muted, but we have some opportunities for attendees to respond with us. They can use the back channel that is posted in the chat box. And that is an opportunity to ask some ongoing, deeper networking types of communication questions. But if you just have a really quick question that needs to be answered, you could drop that in the chat box as well. So that back channel will really give us the opportunity to follow up with questions and to collaborate around questions and to get the input from a lot of different voices as we really think about how we can redesign teaching and learning for this next school year. It will give us the opportunity for continued learning, networking, and collaboration. You know, we're going to pose questions today. They're posed as topics, not really questions, because we don't expect to come up with definitive answers for these questions. These are questions for us to think about, to talk about, and then to even take us deeper into developing other questions that will help us lead the way for this school year. What I really like about the design of our launch for the Design Lab is that this is going to be an ongoing support throughout the year, that we will be sharing ideas, sharing strategy, sharing best practices and what works with each other, so that we can all learn and provide the best teaching and learning opportunities that we can for our students. So use the chat box if you have a quick question that needs a response right away. Use the back channel if you want to pose a deeper question that folks need to be thinking about. And we really encourage you to hang on to these questions and use them in leadership conversations that you are having at your school and district about re-entry for this school year. So we know that districts and schools that really build and cultivate a collaborative leadership culture are those that are best positioned for what we are about to do, that we are pivoting in a time of need to execute a digital learning initiative. Whether you are going full on digital when you start up school this year, whether you're offering a virtual opportunity for some students, we have to be flexible and we have to be ready to implement digital learning at any point in time during this school year. So we're really doing a deep dive into the question about how are schools and districts building leadership capacity to best support students and teachers. And I will tell you this, educators always know when it's a full moon. You all know that. We just have this radar about when it's a full moon. And if you ever need to get a panel together for an opportunity like this, do it when it's a full moon, because apparently the stars line up and you get the very best people to be on your panel. So we are so excited that we have the panel that we do today. They represent a perspective from the state level to the regional level, district level, and school level. So with that, I'm going to let each panelist introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their role, because you're going to be hearing from them today in this session, but they are people that you're going to want to add to your professional learning network, to your PLN. These are people that you will be able to get ideas from, to be able to discuss strategies and ideas, and they will be useful to you moving forward. So with that, I'm going to start out with our state perspective, and that is Laura Raganos from KDE, and I'm not going to say everybody's name and then have them repeat it. So we'll just start with Laura, and after that, we'll just go down the list with folks introducing themselves. So good afternoon, Laura.
Good afternoon, Jennifer. Thank you so much for your enthusiasm, your excitement, and for this session. As Jennifer said, I'm Laura Raganos. I'm from the Department of Education in the Office of Education Technology, and I am a digital learning coach. So not only do I get to work with districts across the state as they level up some of their skills that we've talked about this morning, but I also have the honor to work with all of the digital learning coaches across the state in the districts. And we'll talk a little bit later about digital learning coaches and what that means. But I just have to say this, just to one off Marty Park, as he said in his opening this morning, that I have the best job in the state, getting to work with the digital learning coaches. And then with that, I'll turn it over to Courtney, and she's probably going to say she does, but I get to say it first.
Hello, my name is Courtney Durosset, and I work for the department as well in the role of the CATS field staff for Region 8. And here in the East, I like to think that all of us, there's 8 of us in this role for the state, and I like to say that I have the best region. But just a former teacher, assistant principal, innovation coordinator, CIO, and now I get to work primarily with our ed tech leaders and CIO. And it's really nice to see the roles that they have and get to work with them in our region. I'm very proud of our region. Thank you for having me.
And district perspective, we have Ronnie.
All right, I'm Ronnie Goins. I'm the instructional facilitator in Letcher County. And I work really closely. I wear lots of different hats, but I work really closely with our technology department. And I've learned so much more about technology since I've been in this position. I always kid around and say I'm the junior technology coordinator now in the district, but I've learned a lot in this position. I'm happy to be here today.
I just got a text from Mike. I don't know if he has been able to log in or not, but Mike Bell, who is a digital learning coach for Floyd County Schools, and he has always been our go-to for programs around STLP. Maybe he's on now. Mike, are you there? Maybe you're muted. I'm not sure.
Yes, I'm here.
Yay.
I'm so sorry.
That's all right. We're glad to have you.
Hi guys, I'm Mike Bell. I'm the new digital learning coach for Floyd County Schools. Been in the position for a couple months now, and I'm so excited to be part of this panel. I apologize for being late and getting set in here. I'm so excited, and I can't wait to be talking with you guys today.
You actually weren't late. You were right on time. We had just got to your name. So yeah, it was really good. And our elementary principal.
I am Sabrina McElroy, and I am principal at Highland Turner Elementary School in Breathitt County. And I am super excited to be a part of this panel because at my school, we're always continually striving to be the best we can for our kids every day, as well as our teachers to be the best and me to be the best principal and administrator that I can be. So I'm super excited today to get to speak with you all on some of the topics we're going to talk about and also learn from the other panelists. So thank you all for including me.
Thank you. And then our secondary principal.
Yeah, I'm Nick Brooks. I'm the principal at Wolfe County Middle School, and I have to say, Laura's right about a lot of things, but she's wrong. I've got the best job. I get to work with the best students, the best staff. So very excited to be here. Learned a lot yesterday as we were kind of running through a little practice session. So I've got my notebook out here, and I'm ready to participate as well as learn from these other folks.
Well, I will have to say that today, Robert and I had the best job because we got to bring together this awesome group of people for this conversation. So for today, we're going to take those top honors and say that we have the best job. We are on a tight timeline for today. So we're going to take turns. When Robert is facilitating a topic, I'm going to be the timekeeper and vice versa, because we want to make sure that we get to all of the topics that we want to discuss. So with that, I'm going to let Robert start us with our discussion. And remember, you have the chat functionality for quick response questions, and you also have the link in the chat box to our back channel form where you can pose questions and others can respond. So even if you don't have a question, you might visit the back channel just to see what questions folks are talking about and see if you have something to add. So with that, I'll let Robert take over.
Well, good morning, participants, and good morning, panelists, or good afternoon, I guess. We're so happy that you could be here for this. And looking at topic number one, what I like to think about this topic is we're in a situation where we have great opportunity, kind of from the flames rises the phoenix. Yes, we had an issue that has pushed us into a situation where we have an opportunity to stretch our education to heights that it has never been before. And I think through some digital means is the way we're going to get that. So that being said, and thinking about all the work that we're doing now and the work we want to go, this is going to change how teaching and learning looks in the future. So in part of that last year, we had the NTI program. And as some said in the previous, packets became the norm for NTI, and there were some bad connotations about that. But we need to rebrand this. I know the department is rebranding as NTI Awesome, but how can we even take that and go beyond how we can get people to think about the learning situations being authentic and rigorous that they need to get through the semester or the school year? And how does that look like across grades, preschool, elementary, middle, and high? With that, we're going to start with Sabrina at the elementary level, and then from that, we'll let the rest of the panelists just piggyback on her conversation. All right, so Sabrina, would you like to take first crack at this?
I sure will. When we ended last year in March going to NTI, our parents, we threw that together in a day and a half to get our students ready with things that they needed. So of course, those were NTI days, the non-traditional instruction days. And as we have been having conversations around that, as we move into school this year, we have really rebranded that in our district, and we are no longer going to refer to that as NTI. We're going to refer to it as school-based virtual learning. And the reason for that is because we are really going to look at having our students logging in and being as much in the normal classroom as possible. Right now, our district is providing the school-based virtual learning as an option as well as in person. And so we really wanted to have real-time teaching so that those students, for basically their whole social, emotional well-being, can also have interaction with those teachers as well as their fellow classmates when they're not going to see them each day. So we're going to roll right on with school because, like Jennifer said, it's going to be the best this year that we've ever taught. And we're going to continue like looking at the opportunity myth where our students receive their learning targets, they're getting their rigorous instruction at the appropriate level. We're having them in the process of also in the classroom having the conversations around the learning target so our students all know what they need to know by the end of the day. And we're looking at actually having our students logged on when our teacher is providing that instruction. So it's going to be a continuous flow of asking questions to those students, as well as asking questions to our students in the classroom and having them all discuss or be able to discuss those topics together. So I'm really excited about working with my teachers to get that smooth transition and really being a part of the work with the parents and how those Google Meets are going to look in the classroom, and really helping those teachers get their rooms ready to go when we start on August the 24th.
Okay. Nick?
Yeah, so thinking about it from a little bit of an upper grade perspective, I'm at the middle school or high school, and we've considered some different options, and we've decided that we're going to go with an asynchronous model, with one of the primary reasons being, we found even when we're normal times, we sometimes struggle getting teenagers and preteens out of bed at 8 o'clock and up and ready to go. We feel like that's fighting a losing battle with students that are learning from home. So we're going to go with a more asynchronous model with some scheduled times for virtual meetings, probably scheduled later on in the day when those teenagers seem to be a little more functional. And the biggest thing that we're looking at from a staff standpoint is both with we're having options for students, an in-person option or a remote learning option. And so we know that teaching and learning has to be active in both those settings. And so, we've put a lot of thought into, how we're going to do that with the remote side of things. But something that just came up within the last couple of days that I've been thinking about is, our students that are in person during this time, we're going to have to adjust the things that we're doing for them as well, because a lot of things that we're doing, Kagan groupings and, cooperative groupings, and a lot of that work is going to look much, much, much different in the classroom. And we can't just settle for, very passive learning with the in-person learners as well as those that are at home. So that's something we're trying to figure out right now. We definitely don't have all the answers at this point.
And I don't think any of us do, and it'd be great if you did. But thank you, Sabrina, and thank you for both of those perspectives, because they're a little different in how you provided those. Ronnie, would you like to go next?
Sure. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm from Letcher County, and we're actually starting out the year all virtual. And, during NTI last year, I think looking at parent surveys, I think that kind of left a little bit of a bad taste in some of the parents' mouth. And so we really did a lot of planning. That kind of hit us like everybody. And we had never experienced anything like that before. So we've prepared a lot. We've actually moved since then to a one-to-one initiative. So every kid from preschool to a senior in high school will get a Chromebook. And we're going to do just with our instruction, we're going to kind of do a little bit of both of what Nick and Sabrina said. We're going to do pre-recorded lessons at each grade level. So we're going to have that asynchronous component, but we are going to meet, in a synchronous environment. The minimum for each grade level is once a week for each subject area in each grade level. But one thing I really stressed to our principals when I met with them about it was, this is going to open up a lot of time for our teachers. And we want to make sure that even though they may not be meeting synchronously with a whole class that day, this is a great opportunity to touch base with all students, just check on them, the struggling learners, just everyone. And I'm really excited about this opportunity. At first, whenever I knew, we knew we were going to open up initially in a blended environment and then move into all virtually, I was a little bit worried. But the more I thought about it, this is going to be a great opportunity. And I think our teachers are really going to grow. We're going to provide a lot of training for them, training for our students, our parents, and I'm really excited about what this is going to look like. I think it's going to make us all a better teachers, a better district as a whole whenever this is over.
So far, a couple of you have mentioned the time element, especially with high schoolers and getting them out of bed. I know there's some research out there, a prisoner of time, and looking at how some students, they start school later, depending on their state. So that may be some reference resources in there we can find and post on the holler about how we can adjust times and calendars for specific students. And before we go on, let's hear from Mike and see what you have to share.
Yeah, Floyd County is looking at an in-person and an online model. We are looking at 5 days in or fully online. But one thing that I think makes ours a little bit more unique is we are offering a flex option to when, if a student begins online and they go for a couple of weeks and they see that they want to transition to in-person, they have to provide 5 days notice to do that. Same thing if they're going from online to in-person, they also provide it. Now, if a student gets sick and they're in person, it's an automatic, we automatically go online. So, but it provides the parents some flexibility, which we are really getting a lot of good feedback from. And it's something I think is very, to be able to provide them with that flexibility has been pretty, from what we're seeing from the front, pretty good. Now, when we get into it, we'll see how that rolls, but that's at least where our starting point is. And you're talking about training for teachers. Right now, we are hot and heavy in 2 days of virtual PD going on right now with our students, or with our teachers and staff. We have over 500 participating in those the next couple of days. So they're getting trained on just basics in online tools. So that's sort of where we're starting at.
All right, that's awesome. One quick question. I have a couple minutes left for this question. So let's say that you guys have Robert Brown as your teacher, and I'm going to come to you and I'll say, okay, exactly how will my day look? Can you walk me through my day?
Well, I guess I can jump in there. In our in-person model, it really depends on what you're teaching. If you're teaching in person, we're going to try to keep it as very traditional as possible. I think being normal is out the window, so we're going to try our best to keep it as close to what was in the past, with social distancing, with all the guidelines. Online model right now, I think, is very flexible. It's very fluid at this time for us in Floyd County. We are actually preparing our IT department in providing after school hours for any tech issues. We're really having to look at the teachers, like what the guys were saying a while ago with Nick, and a more flexible type schedule with our online learning, since it's more asynchronous rather than synchronous. So that's sort of where we are in Floyd County.
I kind of want to go back to something you mentioned a minute ago, Mike, and you were talking about your teachers are kind of going through baptism by fire with professional learning. How are professional learning decisions being made? And are your teachers getting more PD than they normally get? Or is it district wide? Everyone's getting the same PD, or is there some personalization going on there?
We, as the digital learning coach, I've actually been part of the instructional team here at the district level, which is a completely new role for me. So when we met the very first time, that was our first priority, is how do we take, or how do we lessen the stress of our teachers? We can't take it all away. We totally understand that. But if we can provide them with some great tools and doing it in a very systematic way, some of that stress is relieved. What we focused on was our basic platforms. We wanted universal platforms across the district. We wanted everybody using the same video conferencing. We wanted everybody using the same, this is, if I'm online, I'm going to my classroom first, Google Classroom first. So that's what they're getting trained on right now. We have the district has purchased Nearpod for everybody. So everybody's getting trained in 4 areas today. The G Suite apps, which is doc sheets, slides, those things, Google Classroom, Google Meet, and Nearpod. Those are our 4 basic platforms that we're going to be using district-wide. We took the information we gathered from the end of school last year, what teachers were saying and what students were saying. And then plus I actually got into the Google Analytics. You actually can get in there and look at the Google data. And it was so neat because it was like, oh, we got Google usage. And then all of a sudden we hit March and you saw the Google, the usage start doing this. And then when we put a packet out, it spiked. And then it dropped back down. And then by the time we got to the end of school, it was literally nothing. So we're using that data to monitor, because I want to see, you know, if I've got teachers out there that are maybe having a hard time, I can actually sort of track that data as we go along, and I can actually go into that teacher, you know, make some one-on-one time for them to help with that.
So, and that is the perfect segue for the next topic. I mean, because it ties right into this, is, you know, as we think about the kind of technology support that teachers and students and families are going to need in transitioning to an online setting, what kind of support do they need, and how are we providing it? Do you have any specific resources? And how are you communicating with families? And that is something that we've heard in the past couple of sessions, that families are feeling that they're not getting information. And I think sometimes even that might be indicative of teachers not having information. And I know we're sort of in a state of flexibility right now where we really don't know what tomorrow looks like. But when you know, our teachers are our front line of information. That's usually who the parents and families are going to ask. So what's going on? What's this going to look like? What do I need? You know, so how are we having that communication as well? So yesterday we kind of did a run through, and I want to start with Mike, since he was already kind of talking about this topic, and see if he has anything additional that he would want to add.
We are really trying to get communication is one of the biggest things that are at our top level right now, trying to improve. And I think during this time, if that is something that if we all don't focus on as educators and team members, that that could easily have us crashing and burning really fast. Our superintendent is actually coming out once a week and giving just some info on social media, if it's something from the device that we're using to info for parents to whatever. So since July, he's been putting out a video every week just to provide communication. We want the parents to say, hey, you know, they're really sharing the information with us. The same thing with our teachers. We're trying our best to just constantly put out, hey, here's a whole, I've been sending out emails about Nearpod and the things that we're using. So I'm trying to get tools out to them that they can go ahead and start working. Since we have a later start date, we're actually starting at September the 8th. Our teachers, after this training, these 2 days, they have 3 weeks to hone their skills in online teaching. And I'm not saying that we're going to be on there full, but we always want to be prepared. What happens if we have to go fully online? Everybody has to participate. So
that's good. And Laura, we have another question about digital learning coaches, but your digital learning coaches are providing a lot of this support. So I'm just wondering what you will add to this conversation.
Absolutely. So, you know, just sort of piggybacking on what Mike said and some of the others said earlier, first and foremost, understand that this fall should not look like what it did in the spring. We learned so much. And I'm going to take something that Mr. Cochran said this morning on the opening about failing forward. So, you know, learn from those things, fail forward, grow, and let's move on. But with this, we're talking about consistent communication. And that's key. We have to be able to communicate. We are going to, of course, our digital learning coaches that we'll talk about in just a minute are a vital role with that. But we have so many other opportunities to provide support from different groups of people within the districts already. You have your technology support, you know, help desk. You have those folks, but you also have your students, and many districts already have an STLP or student help desk. Just as an FYI, there is a course code already in Infinite Campus, and so if you have those students, there is a whole course that you can design around providing support to teachers, to students, and to parents. And let's not forget, you know, some of our other stakeholders, such as our post-secondary institutions. You know, so many of our pre-service teachers are sort of in a bind at this time as well, and they're needing opportunities for working with our teachers and our students. And so reaching out to our colleges of education. Sometimes that means providing them with a temporary account inside your district so that they can work directly with the teachers and or students. But that's a really, really strong group of people to pull in, and it gives them the opportunity to experience this as well prior to being put in the role full time. And that's what they need anyway, are those real world experiences. And this is as real world as it gets right now.
Yes, it is. Those are really great suggestions for collaboration and networking. Those are great ideas, and hopefully are things that folks are putting on their radar to think about. Courtney, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Not really. I'm so impressed with the districts, because talking about communicating with parents and the teachers and getting everyone on the same page, the plans are rolling in, and you see the districts that have the focus to put that on a website or to put that in a clean landing page. And I know, Jennifer, you have the resources, and we talked about it earlier in the first session about some resources from the different districts of how they're broadcasting and communicating that information. So that's something that if you're watching this, that as a district, you can pull together those resources and work with families on online registration and the platform you're choosing. The last session was with LMS, and a lot of districts are streamlining that. And that streamline is coming from that leadership in the district, often from the digital learning coach and from those leaders, to make sure that the proper communication is allowing people to have the right access.
Good. And there was a chat post that I want to bring our attention to, because when you actually go to the Design Lab page, we have a bucket for library media specialists, because we know that those folks play a pivotal role in providing access to resources to teachers and to students, and that they can really be helpful in designing this instruction as we move forward. So we don't want to forget about those folks and all of the different talents and skills that they bring to the table. So really be thinking about those folks as well in providing that support.
I'm glad you brought that up, Jennifer, because James Allen, he is our state library media specialist lead, and he is a great resource for everyone in the state, because like you said, the library media specialist, it's not that they just are the person that checks out the books anymore. They have the maker spaces. They have that creativity for years now and can be a great resource. So they're part of that digital team of planning.
Yes, they are.
Hey, Jennifer, if I could go back real quick to something that Mike was talking about there with communication. I think it's obviously very important that we are communicating with our families, and also making it easy for our families to keep track of what's going on. It's one of those things you don't even know what you don't know sometimes. Last year, some of the feedback that we got was we've been a one-to-one school for a while, and all of our teachers were using Google Classroom, and all of our students were using Google Classroom and knew how to get to and access all that stuff. But for a parent trying to keep up with what their child was doing, we got 7 different classes throughout the day, so they were having to go to 7 different Google classrooms if they could even figure out how to do that, in order to see what all their child was supposed to be getting completed to do it. So that's something that we're really working on this year, is finding a way to streamline all that information, having all that in one spot, where the kids still need to go into their Google Classrooms with their teachers and get stuff done that way. But as a parent, I can go to this one website and see, okay, today my kid's supposed to be doing this, this, and this. And it takes one extra step for us from a school side of things, but it's going to save our parents, I think, a whole lot of headaches as they're trying to keep up with what their kids are doing.
That's a lovely idea, and in terms of organization and management, to be able to do that for parents will be so helpful.
And Jennifer, I want to comment really quickly from Highland Turner's standpoint. One of the things that I've been doing is I really like to make a connection with all of my families and all of my students. And so one of the things that I have been providing are some Google Meet sessions. So if parents have questions about certain things, they can, they're welcome to attend. I share the link on our Facebook page and our web page. And sometimes I'll call and say, hey, you know, you asked me a question last week. We're having a Google Meet. Why don't you hop on tomorrow, because you're going to hear what everybody has to say. Now, I usually have about, last time I think I had 25, 26 different parents that had some really great questions. And so I just think that communication is the key role, and building that relationship and making that connection. So as we start into school, whether it's those students that I'm going to see face to face or I'm going to see on the computer every day, I just think that relationship and that communication is going to be the key to making sure that our students get what they need this year and being able to provide that support. Because if I know my parents and I know what they need, I can provide them the support they need one-on-one. So that's kind of some of the things I'm doing. I've made phone calls. I've had video chats on Facebook. We're getting ready. I've got some kindergarten parents that we're going to do like a kindergarten registration at school. So I'm waiting on getting that plan approved through the health department. We did do also in Breathitt County the one-to-one devices in K through 12 this year. So getting those devices in the hands of the smaller ones, because we only had 5 through 12 last year that we provided the device. So I think this year, you know, I call my parents. I'm very active in everything that we do with my teachers. And so I think providing that as support as well as those specific resources are going to be the key as we move forward into making sure that our kids get what they need, and parents and teachers.
I love your idea about having a Google Meet with parents. And the reason I like it is because I can remember a few years ago, and Courtney remembers this, when we were just figuring out Twitter chats, and we would have a Twitter chat to learn how to do a Twitter chat. And once folks felt supported in that, and they felt like they weren't going to mess up, you know, and look like a fool on Twitter, then they were okay with that. So giving your parents the opportunity to practice in Google and know they're not going to break it, that just adds a little layer of security and helps them to engage more. So I think that's a great idea. So we're moving on. If you all heard my alarm ringing there, we're moving on to topic 3 so we don't run out of time, and Robert's going to take that one.
Yeah. With topic 3, we've talked to parents, we've read articles, we've seen newscasts of where parents with students with disabilities are really struggling, and so they're asking, what help am I going to get to help me be successful for my students? So whether I'm teaching my child at home or if I'm at the classroom in a synchronous model, what kind of supports are we going to ensure that we give our students with disabilities the supports they need to be successful and to meet all the requirements that they have to maintain?
Well, I know one thing that we did last year at Highland Turner, when we looked at going into the NTI, where all of our students were home, either learning through paper packets or virtual, I really looked at my staff, and I paired up. I took my instructional assistants. I really looked at my special ed people. I looked at my Read to Achieve. We really looked at everybody together as a whole. And each of my teachers were paired up with specific people that service their students. So for example, if I am the regular ed teacher and you were my co-teacher, we still modeled that through our virtual learning. So when our students were in those virtual Google Meets with their teacher, they actually had both of those people that were normally in their classroom at that time. So as we finished up our whole group instruction through the co-teaching model, then immediately we were able to pull out another Google Meet for certain students that needed that additional support, or for those students that had an IEP, so that we could provide additional support for all of our students that way. So if some of our students that were not online, we would usually call. Sometimes we did like a video call through Facebook, because most of them had a phone and they would have data but not have a device. So that was also some of the ways that we supported our students with disabilities. But we made sure that we contacted those students more than once each day because we know that those students need more support usually. So we wanted to set them up at the beginning of the day to ensure that they had success throughout the day.
Yeah, I want to hear from the others as well, but in your conversation, what are the parents saying to you?
I don't hear you
Okay.
now. Can you all hear him?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. In your responses and working with your supports, I'm interested as well in what are parents who are working with the students at home, how are you communicating with them and those supports as well? I know this is for students, but how are we supporting our students and our parents who are working with these students at home? Nick, you want to try a hand at that one?
Well, that's a tough question. I think the parent side of things throws another level of complexity into it, because you have parents that are on such a different schedule, sometimes a completely different schedule than maybe what a teacher's work schedule is. We've been really intentional about building some time into our master schedule for our special education teachers to be able to focus on those students who are at home but need that extra support. So I think that's important from a building administrator side of things to ensure that those folks have that time, because our special education teachers work extremely hard as it is, and so making sure they've got that time built into their schedule, I felt was really important. Our folks are really good about kind of going above and beyond, as most teachers are. And so I'm sure that our folks will work with those parents that are working during the times during school hours, putting out, we've got a special education teacher who's very savvy with the tech tools. And so I know she's got some stuff in the works. One of the things that we talked about yesterday in our meeting was how much technology has really empowered our special education students, our students with those disabilities, because they now have control over so much more of the accommodations that they're able to receive. So at the middle and high school level, we're really working with students on how to, move past those obstacles that they may have. And so having that device with some of those great add-ons that are available in Chrome, that allows them to really have the power over when they get a reader and scribe. They're not just limited to waiting for that one classroom teacher or that special education teacher to be there to read or scribe or anything like that. They've got those tools, at their own disposal to use when they need it. I think that's really empowering for our special education students.
And I love your comment about control. And that's kind of where I was going, because if the students are having that control, that helps the parents. So that goes together. So your control comment was right on point, is where I was going with that conversation. So thank you.
And I wanted to point out too that, if you have that rock star special education teacher who really knows how to use those tech tools, if they could share with the regular ed teachers some of the ways that those tools can be used for accommodations, for readers and those kinds of things, I think that would just go miles, because if your peer is showing you how you can use technology to help your children to learn, I think it's just great that you have that resource in your building and they'll be able to share. And if you do happen to have that person share, would you please video it and share it with us? That's great, Nick. That is really
Absolutely.
great.
All right. Remember, we are learning as we go through this, and all these resources we'll put on our website at the Holler as we develop these systems and these supports for our teachers. Anyone else want to respond to this question?
I just want to throw one last thing in there before we move on to the next topic. And that is that we have to remember to include those special ed teachers in everything we do. Too many times, they are not included in that general population of our teacher trainings, and that's vital for them. They need to be a part of it. They need to understand, and they need to learn the accessibility features that Nick was referring to, because there are a lot of tools inside some of these platforms that they just don't know are there. And so that it's really important that we include them not only in the training, but also in their classrooms. Like if they're using Google Classroom, they absolutely should be a part of those Google Classrooms so that they can personalize and differentiate those lessons for those students to follow their IEPs. And they should be a vital part of the communication with all teachers and the students and the parents. So let's just remember to keep them looped in as well.
I think that's so important, Laura.
Robert, I'd like to jump in
go
here
ahead.
just
Sure.
1 minute because you're going to hear about it later. But at KVAC, our special ed, we've just finished summer academies. And as the literacy instructional specialist, I was a part of the 3-day literacy academy, one for K-5 and one for 6-8 special ed teachers. So you're going to hear from them later, but we have always been about including our special needs teachers. You know, we get the information out there. We wish we had bigger groups that would be a part of it, but we never forget about our special ed, and we have an awesome special ed co-op.
Yeah, we do.
Yes, we do.
And that, we have to go, Jeff always talks about going at things from the strengths model versus the deficit model. And, we may have special education teachers who really have an in-depth knowledge of some of those accessibility features of the different platforms and tools we're using, and to have them share with the regular ed teachers and vice versa. That just really creates a culture of learning where they can brainstorm the very best ways to use that technology to advance the outcomes for all of their students, not just the students who have special needs, but for all students. So that is a great conversation to have. Did anyone have anything else to add?
I do. I have one thing to add. I want to piggyback on something Laura had said. You had mentioned earlier about the higher ed in your conversations, including these other teachers. We have student teachers that will be coming into our schools in these new virtual environments. So I think having those conversations with higher ed, getting them trained in Google Meets or whatever the schools are using in the regions, having that communication open, to have these student teachers ready and prepared to come into these schools to meet the needs of these student disabilities or any students in this new world of education, I think is so important. So with that, we'll move on to our final question.
Yeah, and we tried to time this so that we had a little bit of extra time at the end for this question, so it has a little buffer, because this question is loaded with opportunity for our district. So we really want to make sure that folks have the opportunity to hear about and consider and think about this opportunity. So this topic is around what are the supports and resources that digital learning coaches are providing for teachers and students and administrators? And then how are you providing that support if you have not dedicated staff in the role of a district learning coach? And I'm going to have to start with Laura on that one, because Laura can share the role of what those folks do, but then also the opportunities that districts have to get folks in that role. So I'm going to let Laura start with that one.
And this topic is near and dear to my heart. So it's the question I've been waiting for, right? So the digital learning coaches are going to provide all of these things that we've just been talking about. Those supports to the students, to the teachers, to the administrators, and to the families. They are that point of contact. And that is so important, especially during these times, is to have somebody that you can turn to when you have a question, when you need that, where it's a training up front or something's not working. What do I do? Who do I turn to? And a digital learning coach is so vital. We saw in the spring that the districts who had digital learning coaches already identified, even though they didn't experience perfection, they had fewer hurdles than the districts who did not have digital learning coaches already in place, because they had been working on these blended instructional strategies prior to. And it was just an easier transition into the environment that we're in. So being able to provide those supports, those trainings, They provide professional development for the teachers. So sometimes that looks like PD hours, after school or during the summer, much like what Mike was talking about, providing those foundational opportunities to the teachers. And we realize that sometimes that's a little bit of a hardship on districts to identify a full-time digital learning coach. Although that is like the best case scenario, let's have a full-time digital learning coach in every building. And if we could do that, that would be fantastic. And some districts have, but we also know that that's not always feasible. So we have seen a big push for part-time or a stipend digital learning coach in a lot of districts. And it's usually that person or persons in the buildings who are already doing it just because teachers know that it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do for their students, for their parents, but it's also the right thing to do to help the teacher next door. And so they're already providing those opportunities. So why not champion them and identify them and provide some sort of a thank you to them? And so in some districts, that is a stipend. And so we're seeing a huge influx of those. About 2 years ago, we had 70 digital learning coaches in the state, but now we have 279 DLCs in the state. So we are at the state level providing an opportunity for a stipend back to the districts who do identify either full-time, part-time, or a stipend position. And so that is, it is something that it's not a lot of money, but it is at least the ability for us to say, this is an extremely important role, enough to say, we're going to put a tiny bit of money behind it for you to help offset, whether that's offset their stipend or to offset some expenses that they might have traveling to meetings or to conferences, such as our monthly meetings. So digital learning coaches have a monthly meeting in each region, and that's so that they can come and they can grow themselves, that they have a support system themselves to turn to, but they also can take that information back to the district and help the district build that capacity a little faster. We also want to be able to have them attend KISTI, which is an extremely important conference. And so that, again, is something that we request that they be able to do in that role. So it's super excited about this. We've got, of course, on the call, we've got Mike Bell, who is a full-time digital learning coach and is killing it in Floyd County. So love that. We also are hearing from a couple other districts that are on this call that are adding those stipend roles. So that's super exciting. And so Region 8, the KVEC region, is doing a phenomenal job identifying some of those people to be that support system for the students, the teachers, and the community.
That is great. And Mike, do you want to chime in with Laura's comments, because you are in that role and you are supporting a pretty large district in that role?
Yeah, the last couple months have really been amazing for me. I've got to learn. I told somebody the other day, I felt like I learned 2 or 3 years of information in about 9 days. But, one thing that I've realized is teachers just need support. They need somebody to be their cheerleader, to be the person that sort of gives them that extra push. And that's what I've really, when I get time to spend with the teachers over the last couple of weeks, that has been my biggest thing, because teachers come in and they're just so like, I can't do this, or I can't. I said, it's okay to mess up. It's okay. It's okay. Your students needs to see you try, but they also need to see you fail. It's okay. And once we get through that hurdle, they start to blossom and they start realizing, hey, I can do this. And I told them, I said, look, I said, let your students help teach you. It's okay. It's okay. We're in a whole different world. Let's just rock it out. And that's my biggest thing. I want to make sure that I can give our teachers and really our administrators too. Don't forget about our administrators and our central office staff, as well as our maintenance staff. I had a chance to go over and work with our maintenance department the other day on introducing them to Google Meet, and they looked at me and they go, "Oh my goodness, why have I not been told this before?" So it's more than just, it's our team is what it is. It's our family, and if you're not there to oversee them. You're not there to be a supervisor. I tell them up front. I said, I'm not a supervisor. I said, I am the person that's going to come in here, hype you up, psych you up, and send you out. But send you out with the knowledge that, hey, if I need help, I can go get Mike. So that's what, you got to be a little freakish in this job. I've realized. You've got to have fun, and you have to understand that the word coach is exactly what it's about.
Yeah.
You are their biggest cheerleader, and sometimes you just got to look at them and say, look, you are going to do this. Why? Because I'm here with you and we're going to do it.
Yeah.
So listen, I just encourage districts. This is a needed position. And I don't know if you can do it on the school level or the district level, but the response I've had from teachers going, thanks for just giving me some time, has meant probably more than anything else.
Well, I know Floyd County sure made the right decision when they hired you for that position, because you have always been that supportive, and no matter what your role is, so that it's almost like that job was created for you, because you fit that role perfectly. And talking about schools and districts that maybe are identifying folks in those roles, I know that in Nick's school, you're going to have a digital learning coach this year. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've got a teacher that our district is providing a stipend to a teacher from each of our schools to do that job. And I think we've all got in our buildings that person, or if you're lucky, you've got more than one, but that other teachers can go to. And, I'd like to be able to do this, but I don't know exactly how, and that teacher be able to help them out. We've definitely got a couple of those at my school, and one of them in particular is going to take on that role. And it's just good to be able to it's not a lot of money or anything like that, but it's at least good to give her a little bit of payback for all that she does for everybody else, myself included. As soon as we hired her, I sent her a text. I said, okay, digital learning coach, I need some coaching on how to handle the back end of a Google form the way that I wanted to. And so she was able to kind of point me in the right direction, and helped out a lot already there. So I think we have those people in our building, and if we can provide them a little bit of a stipend for that, that's great. But I know most teachers that I know are more than willing to help out their colleagues if it's something that's going to help kids. So
yeah, I think that is a great point to make, Nick, is that she was probably already working herself to death in that role, and now she at least has the recognition and a little bit of a stipend to cover expenses or her time or whatever. But I want to also, I told you I was going to do this whether you did it or not, and I'm putting in the plug that Nick is a principal who really walks the walk and talks the talk, and he models the use of instructional technology himself. He uses it for administrative purposes. He uses it for instructional purposes. And there is just such a culture of collaborative learning in his school building because of his leadership, because he's not afraid to try something and see how it works, and then show his teachers, what he has learned. And he is not only an asset in his school and his district, but he's an asset for the region and the state, because he will share. And that takes me to where I want to kind of, this session could last all day long, but we only had an hour allotted for it. But I think the greatest part about this session is that participants have had an opportunity to meet some wonderful people that can really become part of their professional learning network. And I know every single one of these people personally. And I know that if you reached out to them because you needed a thought partner around something, or you wanted to ask them if they knew of a resource or a connection, that they would love to help you. And so as educators, one of our biggest roles is to really build that professional learning network around ourselves, because we are constant learners. And so I want you to make sure that you take down these people's names, that you reach out to them. Maybe you just reach out to them and you tell them what a great job they did today, so that you can then have that connection with them, that you can continue to talk with them. All of these sessions are going to be archived. Our hauler guides will have them up and ready for folks to watch if you didn't see something, or if you want to share a session with someone who missed out. But remember that this is just the launch of some ongoing work. And so in the chat box, we posted several times the link to the design lab space on the hauler. And we actually have a section just on people, just on that bucket of people. And I asked James if he would go to the library media specialist part of that bucket and add some resources and give us some things to think about in terms of how we're utilizing our library media specialist in this tech support role and their leadership. Remember the back channel form, but as I said, the stars lined up and we had the absolute greatest panel today. And I want to thank each and every one of you for your time, and then thank the folks who joined in to listen and learn with us.